Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Preview Show, Week 8. There's already been a game, Adam. There's lots of fun stuff coming up. There's a London game tomorrow. Quickly, Baltimore Ravens, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's happened to the Buccaneers? Great news for the Ravens actually managing to win in the fourth quarter for once.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it, that the Bucs have kind of fallen away so badly. I think this one has to be on the defense a little bit. They gave up 27 points, and now they've lost Shaq Barrett as well, so they look like they're in a bit of a hole. Brady not looking quite as good, but at the same time, he's still top of the list for passing yards, I think it is. So it's not completely awful, but yeah, a bit of a surprise. Good to see the Ravens doing what the Ravens do, although it cost them about half of their squad in injuries by the end of it. But I must admit, not a massive surprise, to be honest. The Ravens are looking half decent. The Bucs are struggling at the moment. But it could be the beginning of the end, but probably not. But
did you ever think at Week 8 we'd be saying the Atlanta Falcons are top of their division?
Well, the other thing is whoever wins the Falcons-Panthers game will be top outright, won't they? So, no, not at all. Absolutely ridiculous.
Crazy. Right, let's get into it. And the early game, the early fixture is the London fixture. It's the Denver Broncos at the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of people saying, this isn't going to be a great game, but I think it's going to be a good one to watch.
I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it'd be quite interesting in that respect. I think the problem is the reason people are saying it's not going to be a great game is that both defenses are pretty good. They're both ranked in the top 10, with the Broncos a little bit higher than the Jags. I think it's going to be quite a tight game, and so I think for me, I'm going to go for the Jags. Just for Johnny, really, more than anything else. I mean, we got to give him something, haven't we? So I'm going to go for the Jags. Realistically, when it comes to betting on it, I put my preview out. I like the Jags. -2.5 is 5-6. On the Jags side, it's pretty much Travis Etienne now. There isn't really anything else when it comes to that offense that you can guarantee is going to do well. He's 13-10. The other one who, on the Jags side, I did like the look of is Jermichael Hasty. He's now going to be the number 2 running back. So at 11-4, I think he's definitely one that might come in a little bit, not do loads. He has scored a touchdown before and got a big play. I think he's definitely worth looking out for as well. And then on the Broncos side, Russell Wilson's back. So that means no touchdowns. It's not great. The one that I like to look at is Greg Dulcich. 3. You can get him about 3-1, 7-2 in certain places. I think he's getting more involved. He certainly got more involved last week, but obviously that was Ripien that was quarterback. But I like Dulcich, and if there's any weakness really on the Jags, it might be against the run a little bit. But you've got Gordon, you've got Murray. They're both over 2-1, so I think that there's them. But really, it's, to be honest, Etienne is the obvious, and Dulcich is a bit of a longer shot.
Well, looking out the window, it looks pretty wet outside where I am at the moment, so it might be a hell of a lot of run game from these two teams because it is their strengths. So I think you're right in locking in the running backs for this one. But looking at that, the Denver defense is one of the top-ranked teams stopping the run, isn't it? So if that's the case, the Jags might be in a little bit of trouble if Trevor Lawrence can't get in with his legs and Etienne can't get it going. Then they might struggle a little bit because I think passing-wise, I think Denver have got the edge on this one for me. And the cornerbacks at Denver, Satan has shut down everybody he's come up against. And if you look at the guys he's come up against, they're all big names. So there might be a little bit of an issue there. So I like the Broncos for this one. I think on the whole, I think there's just more stuff from stats pointed towards that, despite the fact that, as Johnny will point out to you, Jags do well in London. Giants do well in London. Jags do well in London. So if history's anything to go by, they could win this one.
Well, the Jags do well in London, but they are, when I looked into it, they're actually 4-4. So they're not amazing, but then that's a pretty good record for the Jags, 4-4 come week 8. So maybe in a way they do.
Right, next game up is it's the one we just mentioned. It's the big one to top the division. It's Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I was looking at this. I was like, oh, there's not a lot here, is there? Yeah, I think this is it's a difficult one. I mean, really, the obvious weakness. I know this sounds weird because the Panthers are kind of in rebuild mode, but at the same time they've then gone and won because they're in rebuild mode. So it's a little bit strange. The biggest weakness from both defenses is the Falcons against the pass, and it's even more of a weakness this week because AJ Terrell is out injured, who's basically their best corner, really. So I think because of that, DJ Moore, he got a touchdown last week. I don't see why he can't do it again. He's 6-4. It's not a bad price for DJ Moore. He got 10 targets last week, so I would expect a similar amount because all the other good weapons have gone. So it's like you'd expect that to happen. The only really interesting thing on the Falcons side that I saw, I mean, you feel like it's going to be a lot of run game because that's what Arthur Smith wants to do. Drake London and Kyle Pitts are just not getting the ball enough. But then I think Mariota only threw the ball 12 or 13 times last week. So it's going to be near impossible to get touchdowns that way. One of your favourite Mariota sneaks, I think, is probably the bet on the Falcons side at 11-5. It's obviously unlikely, but it's a bigger price. I think the Panthers could nick this one. I really do. I think they've got the ability to do it still with that defense. I think it's strong enough. DJ Moore, I think, will score. That they put up 21 points against the Bucks. I could see them doing something similar against the Falcons, and it's just a matter of whether the Panthers defense can cope with that Falcons run game, which, to be honest, is more of just a consistent hammer against them rather than any sort of major quality. So I think I'll go for the Panthers, and the Panthers being head of that division after 8 games is shocking.
Well, I'm against you again. I'm with the Falcons for this one. The Panthers, they bounced back well after everyone thinking that that's just tanking and they're done. But they proved a couple of people wrong. But they're without a couple of names. They picked up a couple of injuries. Chuba Hubbard's not going to play. I think that's a big loss because that committee backfield of Foreman and Hubbard worked really well. They both did really, really well. And I think you lose one of them, you lose a little bit from your team. So I think that's a big loss. And the Falcons didn't turn bad overnight, did they? We were talking prior to them playing the Bengals that they were a strong team and proving teams wrong. And when you look at the teams that they beat the Seahawks, they beat the 49ers, they beat the Browns. Tough teams to go up against, games that we thought they'd never win, and they've come across and won them. So losing to the Bengals for me doesn't make them automatically, it's just the Falcons again. I think they are a strong team. I think they've got some good pieces. So I'm going to stick with the Falcons for the win in this one.
The Falcons should win it. They should. But
on to the next game. It's the Bears at the Cowboys. Do we think the Bears can produce a bit of magic like they did again last week?
No, I think that the Cowboys defense, although everyone goes on about the Patriots defense, I think the Cowboys defense is a step up from that. It's really difficult to sort of put any sort of confidence into the Bears winning or any of the players on the Bears. They're not the greatest side in the world. They are predominantly run game. Darnell Mooney has come into it a little bit more, so I do think that you might find something from that. But I don't see him scoring, to be honest, because I think that the Cowboys are 4th against passing yards against them. I just don't see the wide receivers doing anything. They're a little bit weaker against the run. So you've got David Montgomery at 9-4, and you've got Khalil Herbert, who actually is probably the one that I prefer, who's getting more involved in the game at 12-5. He seems to be the one who, I think if you start looking at the snap count and the amount of times that they're on the field, I think you're starting to see Herbert is becoming more of a 50-50 than what he was before. And so I think that there's take the slightly bigger price for that. So that's interesting. When it comes to the Cowboys side of it, Zeke is out, which means it's all going to be Tony Pollard. Unfortunately, he's like 8-11 because the Bears are 29th against the rush. And so it's all going to be Tony Pollard this week. And then you look at the other prices and you just sort of think, well, actually, the Bears defense is pretty good against the pass. And I know that they've just lost Robert Quinn. So obviously that's an issue for them. But yeah, I mean, you could go down the lines of CeeDee Lamb, but he's very, very short at 21-20. Pollard, to be honest, Pollard was the only one that really stood out for me, and at a really short price, not really one that I'd be going for. And maybe Khalil Herbert at a bit of a bigger price, but I'd be surprised if the Cowboys didn't win it.
We talk about momentum a lot every week. Chicago have got a little bit now, surely.
You need to have more than one game for it to be momentum.
You said that Dallas struggle against the run a little bit, and it's going to be all run, and not just Montgomery and Herbert, but Justin Fields as well. You can never rule him out. He's such an athletic player, and you know he shows glimpses of what Lamar Jackson can do with his legs. So I don't think it's going to be a conclusive, let's put Dallas in the win box here. A lot of people are saying week 8, Dallas are on the bubble to be a Super Bowl team. I'm not quite, they've got the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills in that bubble. And just on the outside, they're saying Cowboys are right there. I'm not sure. I think it's going to fall apart. I think they've done really well to be in the position they are, but I'm going to go against you again. I'm going Bears for the win in this one. This is an odd week 8. I've gone crazy. It's taken 8 weeks.
I think they're a playoff team. I wouldn't say they're a Super Bowl team. Personally, I think there's.
I'm just going by what I'm reading, and people are
I
saying.
know.
I'm saying they're going to fall away. I don't think it's going to last for the whole year. And I think if Dallas can't get the run game going, it's going to be a big issue for them. And with only having Pollard, that might cause a bit of an issue. So
possibly.
Next game up. Are we surely we're going to agree on this one? Maybe not. I don't know. It's the Dolphins at the Lions.
We have the first exciting game at last. Because let's face it, them 3 games are not exactly exciting to be watching. The Dolphins Lions, this is the over. This is going to be an absolute crazy barn burner, this one. Yeah, the stats difference is when you have Jared Goff in the Dome in Detroit is so much better. DeAndre Swift is back. Amon-Ra St. Brown is back. He's been in concussion protocol despite the fact that he didn't have a concussion. Don't ask, no one knows. But they are both back. And I think this is going to make a massive difference to the Lions team. So really like Swift at 6-5, really like St. Brown at 13-10. And I really like the fact that the Lions have got one of the worst defenses in the league, because what it means is it's always going to guarantee you points. So over 51.5 at 10-11. And then to be honest, on the Miami side, you can have anyone you want. It really doesn't matter. Mostert is a massive, I know it's odds on, but he is like at 20-21. He is definitely one you should be looking at. Tyreek Hill is the same price. So like Tyreek Hill in this matchup. Jalen Waddle's been a bit quieter this season, but I think that he's got a chance of getting in at 11-10. And then finally, if you want one at a bigger price who is getting more involved and does, like, even with Tua, he seems to be getting more involved now. And that's Mike Gesicki at 15-8. I think that's definitely a price that is worth looking at and putting in your sort of bets. I think the Dolphins will win it, just because I think the Dolphins have got that slightly better defense, especially against the run. I think they're just that little bit better. But their secondary is banged up a little bit. They have lost a couple of players out of that. And so because of that, that's why I think there'll be a lot more points. But in a shootout, I think the Dolphins have got slightly better weapons that are going to make the difference compared to the Lions.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think everything you've just said is pretty much what I was going to say. I think it's definitely going to be a shootout, going to be a high-scoring game, despite the fact the last 2 weeks, the Lions haven't put up big scores. I mean, prior to that, they were putting up 40-odd points, 38 points, 42 points. That seems to have dropped off a little bit, but like I say, Swift's back. That's the difference, I think. So I think we're going to see some big scores. Do you think there's any point this season we're going to see Jameson Williams for the Lions? You think he's going to come back, or do you think he's out for the season?
They're saying that they reckon he's going to play, aren't they? That he will come back at the end. I don't think you're going to see a lot from him, but I think just getting him out there for a couple of games might be a good thing for his progression into next year. But yeah, I wouldn't expect too much from him. But yeah, I mean, when you were talking about the dip off from the Lions, it does definitely coincide with Swift and St. Brown being out, and so the fact that they're both there, I think, is going to be a massive plus for them, yeah. And hopefully we will get the shootout that we want.
But we've agreed on a game for once. It's the Dolphins win. Right, next up for us is the Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings.
So this one's you kind of feel like this one has the potential to be an exciting game as well. The Cardinals had a bit of a shootout with the Saints last week, and the other thing is that they had the Tuesday night, they had the Thursday night game, didn't they, last week? There is a bit of a stat going around that when you come back, when you have the Thursday night game and then you come back and play the Sunday after, you have a slight advantage, which makes sense with the extra time. So the only difference with the only problem with this one is that they've obviously had to travel all the way across to the Vikings, and the Vikings are I think they're kind of like they're winning a lot of one-score games. They're not blowing anyone out here. They're winning, and I can see this one being a bit of a one-score game. When you look at the defenses, they're pretty evenly matched against the rush and the pass, to be honest. They're both pretty decent against the run, and they're both pretty bad against the pass. So you sort of feel like both teams have got weapons on either side. So it is quite an equal matchup. The over-under's 49, which I feel is probably about right. So I'm not really going for that. With the Vikings, obviously Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson are the main ones. I do like Adam Thielen. He's been getting about 6-7 targets a game. He's got to get a touchdown at some point. He's 11-8. And then the other one, not a massively bigger price, but a little bit bigger. The Cardinals are atrocious against the tight end. They really are. And so Irv Smith at 7-4, I think, is the one that's worth having a look at. Again, kind of a similar story. The Vikings are a little bit better against the tight end, but not amazing. So Zach Ertz at 13-5, I think, is a nice price, but he seems to be more the guy who's moving the chains rather than getting the touchdowns. So there is a bit of apprehension on that one. And then really with the Cardinals, James Conner's still out. So I think it's DeAndre Hopkins at 7-5. He came back last week. He looked decent, and I think he's going to have a chance again for this one. Who wins it? The Vikings seem to be getting these one-score games, and I think this kind of feels like there's a chance it could happen again.
Yeah, I'm really torn with this one because the way the Cardinals played last week, every week I've kind of stuck with the Cardinals and said, they're a good team, that they're in the mix, they should be winning this game, and then they go and lose. So I'm really 50-50 with them, but they did get that offense going with Hopkins back. But the Vikings are the dominant team, one of the most dominant teams of the season so far. When we talk about teams that actually make successful and actually go into it, because the league is wide open. The teams at the bottom of every division are still in it pretty much.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like no one wants to win it, especially in the NFC as well. There's teams just aren't performing up to the level they should be, but the Vikings are. The Vikings managed to get in that win, so I'm going to stick with the Vikings for it. But I really wanted to say Cardinals for this one, and Benjamin did well. He's been filling in well. so I wouldn't write him off to be getting in the end zone. He managed to do it last week, and he's putting the yards up as well. So I like him to get in the end zone this game as well. On to the next game. It's the Las Vegas Raiders at the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, no, I see now.
Again?
Sorry?
Shootout again in this one?
Yeah, I think it will be. I mean, it's the over-under's about 49.5. I quite like the over. I do. I mean, the Saints have shown there's a few games here where you're looking at the defenses and where they're ranked, and the fact is like they're kind of mid-table to bottom, some of these. So you can't really expect a lot from the defenses. The one thing, so I like the over at 49.5 at 10 to 11. The Saints, I think it's all Chris Olave, isn't it? It really is at the moment when it comes to the passing game. And the Raiders are ranked 26th against passing yards given up. So I do like Olave at 6-4. I think he's a decent price. The only other one that I did like the look of was Juwan Johnson, although I know that he was on the injury report on Friday, so I don't know if he's going to play that much, but he's 15-8, so he's a slightly bigger price. But really, it's all about Olave when it comes to the Saints, with Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry still out. On the Raiders side, I think the Saints, we've kind of like, I think we've all been programmed a little bit to expect them to have under this amazing defense, and it's not happening this year, really. They're ranked 21st against the run, 16th against the pass. They're not bad, but they're not great either. So I think with the Raiders, I think you can pretty much get most of them up, ready to go. I mean, it looks like Waller's going to be missing again. Josh Jacobs, the problem with Josh Jacobs is that everyone knows how well Josh Jacobs is playing, so he's only 8 to 11, but I love, got a strong chance of scoring. Devontae Adams, I think, is going to do his normal 100 plus yards for a touchdown or two, but he's 10 to 11, so again, he's a bit shorter. Last week, we had Matt Collins as part of our bet that came in. I mean, why not? I quite like him to score again. He's 7-4. He's not going to be on the field that much, but you're kind of getting the price from it. I think you're going to see a lot of points, and I quite like the look of the Raiders to win this one.
Yeah, I think it's. I said this last week, didn't I? I said it last week. I was like, the Raiders on paper are the better team. They've got to be winning this. Saints, I don't know. There's something about the Saints at the minute. There's something about looking at it. Andy Dalton played really well last week, and as you said, Olave is the real deal, isn't it? So that Raiders secondary is shocking, isn't it? It's really, really bad. So I'm going to stick with the Saints in this, but I do think it's going to be a shootout. I do think it's going to be a big scoring game. I think when you're looking at both sides of the defenses, they're both pretty poor. And it's the offenses that are the strengths in these. So I think it's going to be a high scoring, but I'm going to stick with the Saints in it. I think Dalton's going to have a big game, and I think Olave's going to have a big game as well. So, I'm going to stick with the Saints. Is that as disagreeing on another fixture again?
It'll be interesting to see what Kamara does, because he doesn't seem to be part of it at the moment. He's kind of like, he's getting yards, but he's not doing that great, and it's really surprising that, because my thought was that he would struggle with Jameis Winston. When Andy Dalton came back in, I thought he would get into it a lot more, and he doesn't seem to be. So it is a strange one, but Raiders are favourites for this. They're -1.5 on the spread. And
they should be. But this is what I said last week. They should be favourite in a lot of games. They've got good, talented players. They've got a great quarterback. They've got one of the best wide receivers. They've got a great tight end. They've got a good running back. Should be winning games. They shouldn't be in the situation they're in, but it ain't working. They're doing a classic Raiders, so I'm going with the other team. Next up is the New England Patriots at the New York Jets.
Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think I read someone put this out, that this is the live game on Sky.
Okay.
I think, which I mean is a trope. What a decision! I mean, red zone, here we come. Jesus Christ! I mean, this is going to be run a lot, isn't it? This is just going to be running, and there's not a lot else here. The Jets have not got a particularly good offense apart from the run game. And then the best part of the run game is Breece Hall, who's just gone out injured for the rest of the season. So I think it's going to be difficult for the Jets to keep going because they rely so heavily on the run game. I like Michael Carter at 11-8. I think that's a decent price for who will be their number one running back. I know they've brought in James Robinson, but they've come out and said that Robinson isn't going to be involved as much in this game, and they're kind of going to do what the 49ers did with McCaffrey last week. So he's going to play a bit, but not a lot. So I think that the Jets will rely quite heavily on Carter and then rely heavily on their defense, which actually has done pretty well. You know, the Jets defense has been good. They're 11th against the rush, 13th against passing yards. So, I mean, if you look at it, they've got a better defense rank than what the Patriots have got. So I think that the Jets have a chance of winning this game. They do, because they can rely on the run and they can rely on their defense. But it's not going to be an exciting game. With the Patriots, it's all about the run. So Stevenson's 21-20, Harris is 11-8. I'd probably veer more towards Stevenson than Harris. I feel like he's getting a lot more opportunities. The only person, and this is kind of like, he's kind of clutching at straws a little bit, that when it comes to the pass game, is Jakobi Meyers, and only because Mac Jones is meant to be back. But then Mac Jones was back for the last one and he got chucked out. And so this is the problem. He's a long shot. He's 9-4 for Meyers, but I think he might be able to do something. But that Jets defense, I think, is strong. I think the Jets will win it. I think the Patriots are in real trouble, and the Jets are the underdogs here. But I like them to win at 6-5. You can get +2.5, which isn't really amazing because it's not enough to cover a field goal. But that's 10-11. I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be pretty boring, and I think the Jets will sneak it.
Well, we've been saying the last couple of weeks that the Jets, since Wilson's been back, have really struggled to get their wide receivers going. You know, we haven't seen anything from Elijah Moore.
You can't go on any of them at all.
That being said, you're saying they're going to lean on the run game. Obviously, they've lost Breece Hall, but notably, they've lost Elijah Vera-Tucker off of the O-line this week, haven't they? So their O-line's pretty banged up now. And I think when you've got a banged up O-line and you lose one of your guards, I think your run game, your best guard, I think your run game has got to drop a level. So you've got your backup running back and you've lost your guard. I think the run game might struggle, and I think that might be the undoing of them because Wilson isn't getting it going with those wide receivers. And we know what the Patriots can do. We know what they can do with their two running backs. And when you have got a good run game and it is working, it will eventually free up Jakobi Meyers, won't it? So, you know, he's going to get that one play that we're on about every single week. So for me, I'm going to stick with the Patriots because I just think Jets are a little bit beaten up at the moment. So they're just not going to quite get it done this week.
Again, the Patriots should win this game, but after what you saw against the Bears, it was real rough. It really was, and you just sort of think to yourself, this is because it's a divisional game as well. You know what, the Jets, and they're both going to be up for it. But I mean, I don't know. I just think the Jets seem to have stumbled across a run game that seems to be working. And I know obviously Breece Hall coming out is a big loss for them. But, we've seen Michael Carter, how good he was last year. He can be very good. We've seen what James Robinson can still do on the Jags. I mean, if you can do it on the Jags, I'm damn well sure they can do it on the Jets as well. So I think that these two guys are going to have the ability to do something. The O-line is a concern and it will affect it. But I mean, there's a reason I like the under. It's only 40 points and I like the under. I don't think they're going to need to do a lot. I think if they can get 20 points, I think they've won it.
Yeah. It's going to be a low scorer, I think. I think you're right in that aspect. I think that's the right way to go with this game. Next game up, it's It's an interstate clash. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, Freddie. What are you doing? What is going on? The Pittsburgh Steelers are 4-1 to win the game. They're plus 10.5 points and the spread. And it's only over 43 as well. So it's not good. And the one positive from the Steelers' point of view is that I do think their defense has got a little bit better over the last week or two. It does seem
healthy again, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does seem to have got it healthy. Having said that, they're up against the 6-0 Eagles, who it'll be interesting to see what they do in this game, because obviously they're coming off the bye, and most people, it's a positive coming off the bye. But when you're on a bit of a run and it stops you for a week, you do wonder if it does have an effect on you. Having said that, I still feel they'll win, and I think they'll win it pretty comfortably. Jalen Hurts is evens to get in the touchdown, just for you, and your quarterback sneaks there. I think that there's a chance. AJ Brown definitely at 5-4, and Devonta Smith at 8-5 as well. I normally go for Dallas Goedert. He's normally one that I like to go for, but I do feel like he's not getting them opportunities in the red zone. He's just not. He's more the guy who's moving the chains than the guy who's getting the touchdown. So I think that I'm steering clear of him. They're plus 10.5. It's a lot. It is a lot. And I'm not sure that they're going to cover that, but because I think the Steelers will do something. But yeah, so I like the Eagles. And on the Steelers side, I feel it's very much Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth. I feel like that's kind of what it is. I really like over 34.5 yards for Pat Freiermuth at 5-6. I think that's a good one to go for. I still think Najee's injured. There's something, he just doesn't seem to be playing. I think he was a bit better last week, but I heard that. I know this is for fantasy, but it does kind of all come in together. He hasn't scored over 12 points in a single game yet in fantasy, and it's just not the Najee Harris that we're used to. It's like he was a little bit better. He just doesn't seem to be quite there. And you're going up against a defense that is pretty highly ranked at the moment. They're 12th against the run, 5th against the pass. I think it's going to be a lot of dump offs to Freiermuth. Najee's going to try and move it as much as he can. But I don't know. I just don't really like it, and I think the Eagles will win it pretty comfortably.
Yeah, you'd be pretty livid if you drafted Najee Harris in your fantasy, wouldn't you? You know.
I wonder who was stupid enough to do that.
Stupid, great pick. Yeah, you know, Kenny Pickett looks like a rookie, doesn't he? Making rookie decisions. His ball placement is a little bit questionable at sometimes, and this Eagles defense is real hot. You know, it's got weapons everywhere. It's not just like we're saying, oh yeah, like with the Falcons, we're going, oh, don't just, AJ Terrell's fantastic. He could play well. They've got weapons everywhere on that defense. So it doesn't matter where he throws it, he's got to be inch perfect. Otherwise, he's going to be in trouble. I think that's the downfall here in this game. That defense is going to overpower anything Pickett's got to offer, I think. So the offense will do what it does. It does it well. They seem to have found what works at the Eagles, which is fantastic for them. So I see them winning. I do think the Steelers defense will put up a fight. I do think, like you said, they have got better, but the Eagles are just going to overpower in this game. And it's a bit of a shame, but hey ho. On to the next game. It's the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans.
Yeah, another one that's going to be a bit of a boring one, I think, to be honest. The over-under's 40.5. I mean, I quite like the under. I think it's going to be a strong run in this game. I think it's going to be a lot of running. The Titans have got Derrick Henry, obviously. So, he's 8-13. It's really short, but I think it's a fairly obvious one to go for, especially against that Texans run defense, which is currently ranked 32nd so it can't get any worse. So I think Henry is in for a potential big game in this one. Also, I noticed that Ryan Tannehill has gone on the injury report. They reckon that there's quite. Sorry?
Malik Willis is going to be in, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. They reckon there's a strong chance that Malik Willis is going to play. So I think it's going to be a lot of Malik Willis running, a lot of Derrick Henry running. So, yeah, I think they're kind of your options. I don't know what the price is actually for Malik Willis. I'll just have a look. But, you know, I mean, he, in some of the sort of, you know, the friendly games they played earlier, so he's 11-2 anytime. In some of the preseason games that they played, Malik Willis showed that he wants to run a lot. So I think they're probably your two. So Derrick Henry is an obvious. Malik Willis 11-2. It's a bit of a punt, but if he plays, you know, maybe keep an eye on it, because I think there's a chance there that could happen. On the Texans side, I think they're going to run the ball or try to run the ball, because the Titans' defense against the run is pretty good. They're fourth in rushing yards, and they're actually first when they play away. So I think because of that, Dameon Pierce is the one that's probably going to try the most, but I don't really rate his chances that highly. But the Titans struggle against the pass. They really do struggle. They've got no pass defense whatsoever. And they are well known for giving up big plays over the top. I think this is the first week where Brandon Cooks might actually do something. I think at 13-8, he's a decent price for the number one wide receiver on the team. Davis Mills in the last couple of weeks has started to show that he can actually do something a little bit more than what he had in the first few weeks. So I like Cooks at 13-8 for this 1 week. But yeah, when it comes to who wins it, I think the Titans get it. I think it's close, and I think they just about nick it, but it's going to be reliant heavily on Derrick Henry, I think.
Yeah. Well, Nico Collins is out for the Texans as well, so you know Cooks has got to do something, hasn't he? So, exactly. Personally, I think bringing Malik Willis into the team makes them a better team than what they were with Tannehill, just for the sheer fact they haven't got the wide receivers that they used to have, that was Tannehill, and that was Tannehill's strength. Hand the ball off to Henry, and then eventually he'd be good enough to pass the ball to the wide receivers they had. They haven't got that. So I think Malik Willis adds a little bit extra because he is so explosive with his feet and can get it going. So it's going to be Henry and Willis you're watching in this game. And he's got an absolute cannon of an arm. So I know I've not been his biggest fan, and I know he's injured and not going to be playing, but I would have liked to see Treylon Burks play in this one as well. That would have been interesting to watch him gut it down the field to him. So anyone who's going to be downfield for the Titans, I think, has got a good chance of catching it with how anyone who's got any speed whatsoever got a great chance of getting in the end zone for the Titans. And yeah, I think Willis adds extra to the team. And for me, he's better than Mills. So I think whoever's the better quarterback in this game will win it. So I'm going to go with the Titans for this one. Next up is the Washington Commanders at the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, this is a bit of a unknown, this one now, because of the drop. You know, Colts have dropped. Well, I think it is for a lot of us. You might know a little bit more with your college background, sort of thing. But Ehlinger, from what little I have seen, he seems to like to run the ball. He seems quite happy to rush. He doesn't seem like it's not a mess.
He's one of those modern college quarterbacks that does a little bit of everything. His arm's good enough, and he's more of an athlete. We're seeing that out of a lot of the youngsters coming from college now. They are actual athletes as well as quarterbacks, so they're not just an arm and that's it. They're not statues.
But when I say it's a bit of an unknown, we don't know who he's going to throw the ball to. This is the thing. So it's like we can all come out and go, oh, Michael Pittman's the number one receiver, but he might not be his number one receiver. And this is the problem. This is where it becomes a bit of an issue. And the prices are kind of telling me this as well. It's like, you know, Pittman is 7-4. Pittman hasn't been that big for ages. You know, Alec Pierce is 5'2", which is kind of what he was, but Pittman is normally shorter than that, and I think it's because people don't quite know. The one thing I would say, and that I really, really like, I think they're going to run so heavily on the run game. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to get an insane amount of reps. And at 21-20, I know it's a short price, but the idea of getting odds against for Jonathan Taylor to get a touchdown when we don't really know what this quarterback is going to do or where he's going to go, apart from the fact that you have to feel that they're going to rely heavily on the run game, is to me, 21-20 is a massive price for it. So I think Jonathan Taylor definitely. On the Commanders side, it's not inspiring, really, is it? I mean, there's there Robinson. I think we kind of all hoped would be a little bit better than what he has been. It feels like he's been okay, and he's got. The reason he's getting the yards is because he's getting so many reps. So you have to stick with him in so he's 2-1 for a touchdown. I think you have to stick with that because he's on the field so much. So there's a chance it's going to happen and he's going to get the goal line work. But the Colts defense, the Colts defense are pretty good against the pass. And to be honest, Taylor Heinicke, Carson Wentz, whoever it is, it doesn't really fill you with a lot of enthusiasm for the wide receivers at all. So that I haven't really gone with any of them. The under is 39.5. I quite like it. I quite like the under to come off because I just think there's going to be a lot of running and not a lot else going on.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Colts for this straight off the bat, just for the fact that it doesn't matter who's in at quarterback for them. You know, it hasn't worked for the last, 3 years for them who's in quarterback, and they've won games and they've been in playoff situations. It doesn't matter whether it's Rivers, Wentz, Ryan. And you know what? When they had Wentz, it's when we said, how good is Jonathan Taylor? That's when we were going, wow, Jonathan Taylor's insane. He's so good. Because they didn't rely on Wentz as much to be darting the ball all over everywhere. Like they have with Ryan. I think Ryan's the fourth in passing yards in the and we're saying every week that the Colts are terrible and struggling. They're passing the ball a lot and they're getting the yards. So we might see them protect the young quarterback this week, only make the sensible throws, rely on Taylor like they did when Wentz was there, and see a lot more of that old game that we saw them produce such good results. So I think it's going to be in a good position. And Ehlinger is has come from a great college, which is competitive. So he knows what to do, and he was at college for an extra year than he could have been. And I just think that experience for him is going to be good, and they're going to protect him. They're going to give him the right plays, and he's got Paris Campbell, who's on form at the moment. He's got Michael Pittman, who is proven to be a number one receiver. So he's got the weapons there to help him out. So I think it doesn't matter who's in at quarterback for the Colts, that they're used to having something pretty shaky at the back. So it'll be fine. And as we've said, again, he's a bit more athletic than what they've ever had. The last 3 years, they haven't had anything. Well, have they ever had a quarterback that's been athletic? Peyton Manning wasn't athletic. Rivers wasn't. I mean, Andrew Luck wasn't particularly a runner either. So
he is 7-2 for a quarterback touchdown. If you fancy it, I know what you're like.
Putting in it, but he's a big guy as well, so he might get the short yardage ones as well. I'm sticking with the Colts. Commanders to me don't really offer anything. Taylor Heinicke last week, the first half of the game, his ball placement was really bad. It took him a whole half to start actually doing it. And if it's gonna take you a half against the Colts, and the Colts defense that's got some players back, I think you're done because that defense is its strength when it's on form. So that could be a bit of a gruesome one for the Commanders in that one if they don't come out and be perfect. Next up, it's a big game, I reckon. It's a must win for both. It's the 49ers at the Rams.
Yeah, well, another history lesson for you, as I like to always throw one out every week. Shanahan won 7 consecutive games against the Rams. Shanahan has clearly got McVay's number. it's not changing this week. The Rams, they might be coming off of a bye, but they have struggled this season. They're not the team that they were last year. So I like the 49ers to win it. Take the point. It's -1 on the 49ers. I mean, that's nothing. So at 20-21, it's a slightly better price than them to win. So I like that. They've got a great defense. They're second against the rush, 10th against the pass. The Rams' run game is pretty much non-existent, to be honest, at the moment. And the pass game is near enough Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee. I mean, that is pretty much what their pass game is. And so I think there's not a lot there. Kupp is evens for a touchdown. I think that's a decent price for Cooper Kupp. He's always likely to score. And then Tyler Higbee, he's not so much, not so often is he likely to score a touchdown. He's more a guy who gets receptions and sort of gives you a base, I think, for Higbee. But 13-5, I think it's a decent price for that. On the 49ers side, obviously, with Deebo Samuel out, you feel like they're going to rely on Christian McCaffrey a bit now. There's going to be a lot of like short plays just out to the running back from Garoppolo. He's 10-11 anytime. I think him coming in and being his second week is probably going to be near, and not the end of Jeff Wilson, but near enough the end of Jeff Wilson. And the only other guy who I did like the look of, he got 2 touchdowns last week, is Brandon Ayuk at 13-8. I think he's a decent price. The ball is going to him. Garoppolo seems to be happy to pass it to him. I'm not sure so I think that's a good one. I'm not sure with George Kittle. He had a good game last week, but there is just something about it to me. I feel like George Kittle is what Dallas Goedert is to Jalen Hurts, kind of thing. I feel like when they get into trouble, he goes to Kittle, which is fine. Yeah, and I think that's fine, and that's not a problem. But the difference now is that you've got McCaffrey there. And I just feel like that's going to, if it's going to take away from anybody, I think it's going to be from Kittle. So I like the 49ers to win. Really like Ayuk at 13-8. And obviously Kupp on the other side at evens, I think is good. So, but yeah, I think the 49ers make it 8 in a row.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat around the bush with this one. 49ers have definitely got the Rams in their back pocket now. I've gone against it the last couple of seasons, and it when the Rams have been better than what they have been. So it's got to be the 49ers and a Christian McCaffrey that's been with the team for a full week now. It makes a difference. Hearing a lot of rumors that Jeff Wilson's going to be traded, possibly. So, yeah, I think you're right, and that's the end of Jeff Wilson. But, hey-ho, I'm sticking with the 49ers. Up for the next game, it's the best one of the week, surely. It's the New York Giants, the Seattle Seahawks. Oh, two fantastic teams.
I like the over. I do like the over in this one. I think although the Giants tend to be a bit more of a, they don't get massive scores. I do think this one they might score a few. That Seahawks defense is not great. They really struggle against the run, which must be music to the ears of Brian Daboll and all that at the Giants because of Saquon Barkley. And to be honest, they struggle a little bit against the pass. So I do think there is an opportunity there for the Giants wide receivers to be able to do something. I mean, there's not a lot there, but like Darius Slayton is getting more involved, and he was in the London game we saw, and I think that there's a chance that Slayton will be able to do something at a price at 9-4. I think is nice, but Barkley is definitely the one at 10-11. I know it's odds on, but even still, I mean, it's Saquon, so I'd be very surprised if he didn't get in. On the Seahawks side of the ball, I think it's all Kenneth Walker now. It's all Kenneth Walker. He's 20-21, so he's gone in actually from last night. So I think that he's definitely one. Metcalf, they seem to think he's going to play a little bit, but
he's out.
Oh, is he out? Last I heard they were talking about him playing.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he wants to play, and they don't want him to play is essentially what it is. But he was saying he wanted to play. So no, I wouldn't. I'd have him. You know, given the position they're in, it seems a pointless thing to do. So the reason, anyway, because of that, I would think that in the end the team will win and basically refuse to send him out there. So you've got Tyler Lockett at 6-4. I think that he's definitely one you can look at, but the one that I like at a bigger price, who did well, he did well last week. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to do something against the Giants' pass defense, who is not, again, is they're 15th ranked in passing yards. They're not amazing, but they're not great. Not bad even. And so I think Marquise Goodwin at 3-1, I think has the chance to pop up and get a touchdown again. So I do quite like the look of him at 3-1. I think the Seahawks get it. I think the Giants' run is going to come to a little bit of an end here. And the Seahawks are, the defense is playing slightly better than what I think we thought it would, and the offense under Geno Smith seems to be doing something here. So I quite like the Seahawks. I think the over will happen. I could see it being a bit of a heavy run game, but I think that there'll be points in it, and I think the Seahawks are just nick it.
I'm sticking with the Giants. Not only is Metcalf a game time decision, but Lockett is a game time decision as well. He's got a hamstring injury. They might.
He was last week though, wasn't he? And he played.
They might lose their two best weapons. And I love Kenneth Walker, and I think he's an absolute beast and can carry a team. But I think we look at his stats from last week and we forget that he had the garbage time, massive run down the field for 70-odd yards and a touchdown, which boosted his stats massively. So if he doesn't get that, then it was just an all right game for him last week. Showed some glimpses of some good stuff. Whereas the Giants' defense, I think, is better than what they went up against last week. So I think that might be an issue. And we saw Daniel Jones be able to do more last week with the passing game, and it wasn't all Saquon. Now he's got Slayton, and now he's got Wan'Dale Robinson. And Wan'Dale Robinson seems to be used a lot more. I like him a lot to get in the end zone in this game. I'm going to stick with the Giants to win this one. I just think momentum. They've got the players. They've got some wide receivers back and healthy, whereas the Seahawks look like they're carrying a lot of injuries across the board. So I just think the Giants might nick this one and might get the victory here.
Yeah, I like Robinson. I think he looks good. He's 5-2. He's definitely worth a punt at 5-2. And I mean, I think the Giants, they should be looking at this game and not being scared of it at all. Mm-hmm. Compared to what they have. I just think the Seahawks have been putting points up, and they've been doing it without DK Metcalf and without Tyler Lockett a lot of the time. That's the problem. So I just,
On to the next game. It's your Green Bay Packers at the Buffalo Bills. Are we just saying Bills are moving on? Do you want to embarrass yourself?
Yeah. Well, I figured that I'd wear black today as I'm in mourning before it happens. So, look, the Bills defense is ridiculous. The Packers are also pretty ridiculous at the moment, just in a different meaning. And I think the only one on the Packers side that you can have any confidence in is Aaron Jones. And even then, that's a matter of whether they actually give him the ball. So at 11-8, I think he's too short personally, but he's the only one. The Bills, the Packers, we're really struggling against the run at the moment. So Devin Singletary at 11-10, I think, is a decent price. Diggs, obviously, at 11-10 is all right to go for. Gabe Davis, I could see us giving up. Big play against Gabe Davis at 13-10. The one that I do like the look of at a bigger price, Khalil Shakir at 13-5. Now, Shakir is kind of 50-50 with McKenzie in the slot. I think there's a chance that Shakir could get in here. He's a wide receiver that we both like the look of coming out of college. Thought he did really well on his tape and stuff like that. The Bills picked him up. Great, because they need another receiving option, and I think that he's one to look out for. So a slightly bigger price, I think he's the one. The Packers have got an 11-point advantage on the spread here. It's probably the biggest they've had in ages. Yeah, probably. And to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if the Bills absolutely obliterate that 11 points. And I think there's a stat going around that, is it 34 points is the average that they've won by at home in their home games this year. Yeah. The one thing I would say, the over-under is 47. I think it'll be under. I think that the Packers defense will have enough in the first half before they get knackered to actually slow them down a little bit in the first half. But then come the second half, I think the Bills will just pull away.
Yeah, I like everyone to get in the end zone for the Bills. I think it's Bills. Last game is the Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. Do you think the Cincinnati Bengals are going to produce what they did last week and Joe Burrow's back?
I think it will be harder now that Ja'Marr Chase has gone. I think he's out this week. We don't know how long he's definitely out for. I think that's going to be a little bit tougher for them to be able to do that. I really hope that Zach Taylor doesn't revert back to the run game so much because of it. Because when they are throwing the ball around, they are just such a better team to watch. And also, they win games doing it. They're much better themselves doing it. The Browns are not a particularly great defense. They're 24th against the run, 14th against pass when it comes to yards. I like Mixon for this one. It's 5-6. I think there's a good chance he gets in. Higgins, Boyd are both 20-21. Both of these, with Ja'Marr Chase not there, they're the two that are going to be the main guys. Hurst is 7-4, so he's a slightly bigger price. A little bit more interesting, but you're going to have to look out for the injury reports come game time because he's got a couple of injuries, so it depends whether or not he plays. And then last week we saw Joe Burrow go in as well. Now that's another option at 9-2. He's a bigger price. It might happen. So I do like the Bengals to win it. I like them at -3 as well at 5-6, and I do like the over at 10-11. There's 45 points. There's quite a lot of bets in this one that's quite interesting. And the only thing on the Brown side, obviously, you got Nick Chubb at 4-5. But the one that's a bigger price for the Browns is slightly more interesting. It's Harrison Bryant at 3-1. Now, he is getting more targets. He's getting more involved at the tight end position because David Njoku has gone out injured. So I do think that Bryant is one that people are maybe sleeping on at 3-1. But I think the Bengals will win. I just don't think they'll be quite as explosive as they was last week.
Still got Higgins, still got Boyd. Boyd was a lot better as well. So you can't write him off. This, just because Chase is gone, Burrow will still get it done. I'm sticking with the Bengals for this one. Cleveland just haven't really got it going for me. And I think, again, momentum, Bengals take it. So, yeah, I'm sticking with the Bengals. I like Boyd for it. Adam, you got a treble for us?
No, Saturday morning. I haven't looked at it, so I've got no trebles for you at the moment. I can't help you.
Look out for that tomorrow morning on all the socials then.
We will look forward to that. Tomorrow.
We had another one last week. We had another treble come in, paid up over £100 if you had a fiver on it. We're on a roll again. So make sure you check it out. Look out for that one. I've got a double out of treble for you already just through the show. It's definitely Daniel Jones and Mariota in the double. You want to put Justin Fields in there. Then you maybe go for a fourfold. Get Hurts in there as well. I'm winning you loads of money, guys. Thanks for joining us. If you are at the London game and you see us, come say hello. We'll be about. Best of luck to all your teams, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers, Adam, and thank you. Goodbye.